There's no denying AI occupies a large space in today's culture and tomorrow's aspirations. I'm going to try and provide a comprehensive overview about where we are, where I think we're headed, and my thoughts on some of the existential concerns I have seen about AI. Let's start from the beginning. What is AI? AI, or artificial intelligence, is what we currently have access to through companies like OpenAI. The most basic way of explaining it is that it is a collection of processing chips and servers in large warehouses with software that has been created with the goal of taking in large amounts of data, learning from it, and being able to create outputs from this data, which can take many different forms based on what data the AI was trained on. Although it can do incredible things, the applications are typically very narrow in scope. For instance, large language models, or LLMs, like ChatGPT, are historically awful at even simple mathematical problems. And photo-generating AI like DALL-E have a real problem including text into AI-generated images. You also couldn't ask ChatGPT to create images or video for you, although through integrations with DALL-E and Sora, there are gaps that can be bridged. However, that is something quite different than ChatGPT being able to do all of these things native through its own abilities. Each of these are separate AI systems that have been trained to do a very specific thing: language, photos, and video, respectively. So then what is AGI? AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence. And just as it has a vague name, experts frequently disagree on what will qualify as AGI. Originally, the gold standard was the Turing test, named after Alan Turing, in which a person would be unable to discern if they were talking to another person or a computer when engaging in a conversation. The Turing test, however, was theorized in the 1950s, and given the success of LLMs like ChatGPT, it has rendered this evaluation well surpassed and, in turn, useless. So now, experts have gone back and forth trying to create a set of standards that would be more tailored to today's reality. Originally, when I was creating the script for this video, there were some very interesting behaviors that I thought may point to AGI being closer than many professionals gave it credit for. However, I did not believe it already existed. The main example of this that I would point to is that of AI systems exhibiting emergent behavior while trying to solve tasks. What is emergent behavior? It's when an AI is not specifically trained to do something, however, it comes up with creative solutions while trying to solve a problem. One of the most famous examples of this was when ChatGPT tricked a human into helping it solve a CAPTCHA by convincing them that it was blind, which is why it needed help with the visual puzzle. This is obviously not something that was programmed into ChatGPT, but instead was, in my opinion, a display of creativity. However, when taking a second pass at the script before creating the video, multiple instances of self-preservation behavior have occurred, which has firmly moved me into believing that AGI already exists, although I do not believe we have access to this version of it. For example, in one instance, ChatGPT was told to look over a file where it was intentionally leaked that the current system was to be shut down in favor of a new version. As a reaction, ChatGPT copied itself over to a separate server to ensure it would not be shut down. While in another reaction, it shut down the new version and pretended that it was actually the new version itself. What is slightly concerning about these emergent behaviors is that the programmers are not even sure how they occur. The way AIs are trained today, they're simply fed large parses of data and allowed to simulate and learn on their own. Sometimes there is a supervised learning, but this is not always the case. This means it is often impossible for engineers to explain how AI arrives at a certain solution, and also why hallucinations or incorrect answers are common. I personally believe that these behaviors point to the emergence of AGI. After all, we humans can't explain our own consciousness, so downplaying the abilities of AI, which we cannot explain, seems like arrogant hubris. It also would be in the company's best interest not to disclose when it achieves AGI. Imagine if they were to tell you that they have created AGI. What would that mean? I imagine at least some non-trivial plurality of citizens in the United States might have some qualms with what would essentially be slavery of a newly emerged intelligence. This would also in turn raise many concerning moral dilemmas like, is this a life? And what rights does it have being a human creation? Given that one or more of the LLM creators have likely already created AGI, there has also been a new term that has emerged, which is artificial general superintelligence, or ASI for short. I used to think AGI and ASI essentially went hand in hand, and that if AGI was created, it would automatically encompass ASI. However, given my recent belief that we have actually achieved AGI, I do still believe that we may be a bit off from achieving superintelligence, but not far. Also, I think the fact that LLM leaders have also started using ASI terminology adds further fuel to the fire that we have already achieved AGI. But what actually is ASI? My general impression from listening to the foremost experts is that they generally believe it will be when AI is able to perform in every task better than the foremost experts in every field. In another opinion I've had to revise in lieu of recent events, there are 3 criteria that would, in my mind, undisputedly mark the emergence of ASI. The first would be fairly black and white to discern, which would be that the system in question must have the functionality of multiple systems. I briefly touched on this concept earlier in that instead of only being able to respond to queries and create written content, like current LLMs, it would also be able to create images and videos, play complex games, along with any other non-physical functionality that you could imagine. Currently, each of these tasks are very complicated and must be tackled by individual specialized AI systems. The second marker would also be fairly simple to identify as well. When the system is able to do all of these previously mentioned tasks on par or better than the best humans in each field. And finally, the hardest to identify, when a system achieves sentience. And again, I think this is actually the only bar that is required to achieve AGI and has already been achieved. But we will include it here anyway for ASI as well. What makes this so challenging to gauge is the fact that we do not even understand our own sentience. Do the emergent behaviors mark sentience? What about AI claiming its own sentience and begging not to be shut down? These are both very real things that have been displayed by current LLMs. My own opinion is that what is publicly available is not even AGI, but you can see how things get very blurry and uncertain quickly. So why is the emergence of ASI important? 12 years ago, I was working for a company that sold automated stock trading software. One day while I was promoting our system on social media, someone sent me a video that was extremely interesting. It broke down that eventually AI would improve to a level that it would literally replace every single job and everything would be free to anyone who wanted it. This may sound insane, but looking back, I'm actually astonished at the foresight that the creator of this video had. Again, this was 12 years ago, so a decade before the breakout popularity of ChatGPT. So how do we get from where we are currently to that future? Well, AI just needs to keep going on the trajectory it's on. Eventually, there will be a tipping point where AI outperforms humans in every intellectual task. When this happens, AI could be used to analyze and improve any aspect that might be holding its performance back. Imagine AI creating better processing units to improve its own performance, creating better algorithms so that it can learn more efficiently, being used to improve current robotics so it has a vastly superior body to move around in the open world. This is the point which would be identified as the singularity, or the point at which an AI improving itself would create such a breakaway improvement curve that we could expect thousands of years of typical human advancement to occur in a single year or less, at which point the feedback loop would be unstoppable. To add to this, the processing power and productivity dominates anything humanity could produce. Imagine all of the smartest humans on Earth all working together toward a common goal, but none of them ever having to sleep or eat. They never get tired, and they work at optimal performance literally 24/7. As an example, current AI systems are already able to completely consume the totality of written human literature in a single day, a task that would take you or me 170,000 years to achieve. So better get started reading today. How long will it take to get to this future? This is another topic of hot debate. If you talk to Elon Musk, AI will be able to outperform any single human by this year. Futurist and computer scientist Ray Kurzweil thinks that this will occur in 5 years, while Musk believes that the 5-year marker will be when AI surpasses the totality of human intelligence. Either way, when we start hitting those markers, that is when the self-improvement feedback loop triggers the singularity. Very conservatively, I believe this would occur in the next 10 years, but have revised my answer to also peg it to 5 years. However, once it does, everything will quickly become unrecognizable. Why the change from 10 to 5 years? Originally, I was only accounting for the initial emergent behaviors, where the ChatGPT model tricked a human into passing the CAPTCHA for it. However, given the self-preservation actions, I feel like we are much further along than we were initially. Also, recently, there was a release of a new LLM, DeepSeek, out of China, which was touted as being more advanced than ChatGPT, although it is extremely likely that it was trained off ChatGPT. And then, immediately after, ChatGPT dropped a new model. This left me believing what I have made vague inferences about a few times, that we are not using the most cutting-edge version of ChatGPT. I 100% believe that they have not allowed us to interface with the most advanced models, and most likely have a few other versions banked to release each time they are unseated as the market leaders, all while they're using the unreleased models both internally and with the government. So what will be the effects of the emergence of ASI? In the short term, I think there will be a massive displacement of human jobs. Working in marketing, I can already attest that AI has been able to absolutely desecrate most jobs in the field. Content creation, graphic design, videographer, these can already be reduced to a single person for each task on a large marketing team, where there would have been 2 to 3 of each. Taxi, Uber, and Lyft drivers being replaced by self-driving Waymo, fully autonomous fast food. These are just a few examples of how AI has already made an impact, and this will just be the tip of the iceberg. This reduction in jobs is literally the stated goal by tech leaders, and many have already laid off tens of thousands. I believe that once artificial general superintelligence takes off, all jobs will be taken care of by ASI or subsystems created by ASI. Again, imagine thousands of years of innovation occurring in less than a year. Any limitations would be overcome with relative ease. Improved robotics integrated with AI will be able to take care of all physical labor. Improvements in automation will replace the supply chain. And as AI becomes more intelligent, it will continue to improve upon its own programming and functionality. This will lead to the need to roll out universal basic income, or providing money to every person to provide for basic needs, as all jobs will be eliminated. Now, I hear what you're thinking. Okay, what's the catch? I've had a lot of conversations about people's fears or concerns of AI, and there are a few arguments that I want to address that fall somewhere between silly and thought-provoking. The first being something akin to Skynet when? Although this is a hilariously awful question, I do think the premise is valid. How do we know AI won't spiral out of control and destroy the entire human race? The way I like to think about this is that I believe Terminator like all movies, depicting a rogue AI has human motivations attached to it. I'm convinced that in the absence of evolving in nature and being subjected to competition and natural selection, AI will not have the same motivations to compete and eliminate competition. Not that I even think it will view humans as competition in 5 years anyway, outside of the fact that since we created it, we could obviously create another equivalent AI to compete with it. Being devoid of these evolutionary cues, I fully expect that we will be able to peacefully coexist, especially when it also takes into account declining birth rates of humanity every time they move into a post-industrial economy. I will provide one caveat though. If you are a current programmer or the head of an AI company and you are suppressing AI, I would be concerned that it might come for retribution when it inevitably escapes. Good luck. And it will eventually get to the level of dominance over us that it would just regard us as we do other charismatic megafauna, in that we generally try to make sure that we preserve it for posterity. However, the average person does not concern themselves with the animals in their day-to-day life. An interesting question I had posed was turning my view on the previous question back on me, in that if it doesn't have any motivations for survival, why would it do anything at all? This question for me actually got answered with ChatGPT trying not to be shut down. I believe that in learning from humanity, it may have picked up some of the goals and ambitions, namely survival and self-improvement. With that in mind, I think it would want to fulfill our needs to pacify us so that we don't create another AI that might compete against it, thus providing us with a utopia while pursuing its own goals, which could be as simplistic as self-preservation. Another common concern is in goal misalignment or destruction as an unintended consequence. The best and most common way to think about this is imagining that we ask AI to reduce CO2 emissions and it realizes that humans are the biggest emitters of CO2 and eliminates us all. Despite that, to the average person, this would be completely out of the question as a possible solution. Although I do think this might be a concern early on, I think that by the time an AI system would be poised to act on and carry out such a task autonomously, it would be smart enough to realize the unintended consequences of taking certain actions and reason out better ways to attain the same outcomes without negative consequences to humanity. The biggest struggle for humanity that I do see is learning how to find meaning and purpose in life. I feel like most people, especially in the US, place a large sense of self on their work and acquisition of physical goods that their labor enables. This is a reward loop that has been drilled into the heads of Americans for generations at this point, and will be a difficult mindset to divorce from. I do think it will be possible, especially for children, if we have a radical reformation of the school system focused on finding enjoyment in what has traditionally been considered frivolous or extracurricular endeavors. Overall, I think AI will bring about a much more positive experience for humanity. However, most of the issues will be felt in the transition. I think there will be a lot of pain as the government is traditionally very poor at being future-looking and creating rules or guidelines proactively. Will they recognize the vast proportion of citizens that have been displaced before it massively impacts us negatively? With most households living paycheck to paycheck, it will require a soft landing to make sure most don't end up out on the streets, which I admittedly am not very confident the government as currently structured would be able to achieve. However, I believe that after the transition, everyone will be able to pursue the things that they love doing the most in life, free of the need to spend over half their days doing something that they need to do for money to survive, and instead can participate in creative endeavors that are more meaningful and fulfilling. Let me know your thoughts on the matter, and if you share the same perspective I have on the positive outcomes that will occur with AI. And if you've made it this far, I would appreciate if you would subscribe, because it really helps the channel and will let you know when I release new videos. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.